Celtic beat Inverness 3-1 yesterday to win the Scottish Cup. They beat Rangers 2-1 in February to win the League Cup and beat their old firm rivals by 7 points to win the Scottish Premiership title. You're a big Celtic fan, aren't you?
I am.
And manager Ange Postecoglou been heavily linked with a move to Tottenham Hotspur. How good is he?
I think he's great. I think he was needed at Celtic at the time after Steven Gerrard won the league with Rangers. The club was in a bit of dire straits. He's come in. I think he's handled the media superbly well. He understands the fans and the culture at the football club. His recruitment's been absolutely spot on. And the style of football is the Celtic way. And, the players that he's brought in have had an absolute massive effect on the way the team's performed. And he's won 5 out of the 6 trophies since he's been there. I don't think you could have done any better than he's done.
Do you think he's going to Spurs?
I hope not, because I think he's started something at Celtic. The fans absolutely idolise him. And he's loved, and it seems like it's not a full job because I think he has to.
What you mean he hasn't completed the job yet?
I think because it's the Champions League, he's not been able to progress in the Champions League, and I think if he has one more window, as in this summer, to recruit with the money that they've got, because they obviously being champions, getting the qualification for the Champions League again, if he gets the positions right and the recruitment right with the players that he brings in,
he'll have a good crack at it.
I think. Listen. It's difficult because you haven't got the strength in depth at times in the Scottish League. So that daily chore, what Premier League teams have, and that competition that teams have in the Premier League week in, week out, doesn't matter whether you play bottom of the table or top.
It's not very often that a Scottish team ends up going through to deep in the Champions League. It's happened a couple of times in the UEFA Cup.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what I'm saying. So maybe better perform better in the Champions League, because even though they had some decent moments during the Champions League this season, they didn't get any wins. So perform better in that, and then when you do go into the Europa League, make sure you try and impact that.
Do you think that he sort of gave us indication that he might be moving on after the end of the season, when he yesterday was asked about his links with the Tottenham job, and he said, I think I deserve to enjoy this moment just like everybody else. I worked really hard for it. I owe it to my friends and to my family. I get why you have to ask the question, but from my perspective, I deserve to enjoy this moment. There will be time to come for those kind of questions, but for now we've grasped a small chunk of history for ourselves. I'm not going to pass that by being sidetracked.
I think it's the perfect answer. Basically, he's batted it away.
Yeah, but is he giving an indication that by not wanting to talk about it, he probably is going to move on? Because if he was going to stay, he would just say, no, I'm staying here and I'm going to enjoy this and I'm going to build on what we've done.
But maybe he's not decided.
Or maybe he's holding his cards close to his chest because he can negotiate a big fat deal.
No, I would say it's as it is, because he's quite a straight talker, Ange, and I think he said it as it is, and I don't think he would have been negotiating whilst going for the treble. So I think maybe it is on the back burner, and maybe it's something that they're going to look at now. But I think during the last few weeks of the season, which was massive for Celtic, I think that he's been professional, he's been loyal to the club, and he probably hasn't got in. Listen, it's a big move going to the Premier League, especially with a football club like Tottenham. But you have to say, he has been unbelievably professional since he's been at Celtic, and I think that's just an extension of that.
His backstory is amazing, by the way.
I know.
He arrived in Australia as a 5-year-old, not speaking a word of English. Grew up in a sort of Greek community in Australia. Very slowly but surely got sort of acquainted with his sort of teammates and school friends, but they all loved Aussie rules and cricket, and he loved football. So he managed to play a bit of football. He watched, there was a team in South Melbourne at the time, it was before the A-League and all that, so he used to watch that with quite a lot of other sort of Greek immigrants who had moved over to Australia. Yeah. And his dad played a little bit, he played a little bit, he ended up getting into it on a more regular basis. Became the manager of the Australia under-20s at one stage, right, and then sort of had a bit of a coaching hiatus, ended up in the A-League, then went to Australia and became the Australia manager that took them. He took over during the 2000, or just before the 2014 World Cup, took them to 2018. But because of the fact that he felt as if they weren't investing in certain areas and they weren't giving him what he wanted, he quit. Didn't go to the World Cup in 2018. He quit just before.
Man of principles.
And as a result of that, he ended up going off to Japan to further his career.
Did really well.
Did very well back in the A-League as well.
Melbourne.
And then ended up at Celtic when, again, there was a bit of sort of suspicion about it here.
Yeah.
When he first
I remember Alan Brazil.
Yeah. No one knew who he was or whatever. But ultimately, there was a piece in the Telegraph earlier today actually about suspicion of things that we don't know and the distrust maybe of the Tottenham fans. But this is a guy that actually stands for attacking, exciting football. He don't compromise, which is sort of demonstrated by his quitting of the Australian team just ahead of the Russia 2018 on a point of principle. He's someone who speaks directly to the supporters. He's done a brilliant job at Celtic, really, taking them from a team that finished second to Rangers to a team that are dominating once again. Listen, it's a different landscape, and it's not necessarily automatically going to translate.
But it could be a stepping stone.
But it's a great opportunity for him. Are you suggesting now that he's going to go to Tottenham to feather his nest, make himself look good, so he can go to City afterwards?
Well, he's worked for the City group twice already.
He worked with Scott Munn, who's now at Tottenham.
By all accounts, they are massive fans of his.
Yeah, but the guy who he's working for in Australia, I think he's now the chief of football operations at Tottenham.
I think that's the only way he gets to City. He has to prove himself in the Premier League first.
Everything's about getting to
City. I'm not saying that, but like we've already seen, there's a pattern.
City, isn't it?
He's worked for 2 City group clubs already.
Did you play for City? I can't remember.
Steady. Not really, anyway. I was there for 4 years.
Right, it'd be interesting to see what happens with Ange Postecoglou, because I think he's going to be an addition to wherever he goes next in terms of personality, league-wise and whatever, because he is one of those that, he, as I said, talks directly. He's got great personality. He'll light up a room when he talks to you, but he's also producing great football.
He improves players as well. You look at Carter Vickers. He couldn't get in the Tottenham squad. He got him up there. He's almost player of the year for Celtic this season. Absolutely superb. Played right till the end until he had to go and get an operation. Got him into the obviously he got himself into the American squad, but raised his profile so much in his performance that he ended up going into the US team.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Those questions that he said, there will be a time to come for those kind of questions. Will be asked, I'm sure, very shortly by those in Glasgow. But he needs time. He hasn't got time. If he wants to go to Tottenham, and they've got to sort it out soon. They've been searching for a manager for 60 days.
But yesterday wasn't the day. That's the time to celebrate with his
today
team.
And tomorrow might be.
Yeah.
You never know.